Welcome back, Internet, for more Reddit stories. This one is Ask Reddit. Reddit asks, what's your creepy, ghost, or paranormal story? Alright, spooky. Let's get into it. What's your ghost, creepy, or paranormal story? My great-grandmother watched my great-grandfather die. They were truly in love forever. After he died, she woke up every morning and said, "Damn it," because she was ready to pass away. My great-aunt would always hear her talking on a baby monitor they had set up, talking to members of the family who had already passed. Finally, one afternoon, they heard her go, "John, finally, why are you always late?" They were frozen, as John was my great-grandfather's name. They walked in 10 minutes later and she had passed away. She was just waiting for her husband to come and get her. You hear stories about when people are close to dying that they start seeing family members. It could be just them dying because, their old age and dementia, but it's kind of creepy how it just was kind of a real big coincidence, right? My mom found an old picture of me with one of my late uncles. She asked me if I remembered him. He passed away when I was really young, so unfortunately I don't remember much of him. She told me that he used to take care of me while both my parents were at work, so he had gotten really close. He was essentially another father figure for me at the time. Supposedly, my parents were woken up one night with me crying and screaming his name. When they came into my room, they found me holding that picture of us, the one I mentioned earlier. They got a call from my aunt that morning that he suddenly passed away. My mom said the only other times I ever cried like that was when my dad had to leave for deployment. She's convinced that my uncle had to say goodbye to me that night. I have lots of stories. For now, I'll show the one from when I was 10 on a field trip. So, I grew up in Northern Virginia, and we had plenty of battlefields and such to visit for school trips. In 5th grade, my class went to Belle Grove Plantation, which was at Cedar Creek Battlefield. Cool house, still has damage to her columns from the gunfire from the battle. Anywho, my class was in the kitchen of the plantation, listening to the tour lady talk about whatever it is that you'd tell a bunch of 10-year-olds about plantation life. There are these big double doors on each side of the room, and they were open, and then we hear humming coming from outside. The teacher's aide, who I'll call Bulldog, 'cause she looked like one, told us that whoever was humming to knock it off, but that's the thing. It wasn't any of us, and it was coming from outside. Bulldog goes to one side of the kitchen, comes back in, then goes out to the side that leads to the garden, comes back in, says to the tour lady that no one at all is out there, but she could hear humming right there in the garden. Doesn't sound like much, right? Well, fast forward a few years, and I'm reading the Ghosts of Virginia book, and there's a story about Belle Grove in it. Apparently, the lady of the house was found in the smokehouse one day, badly beaten, half in embers, with clear fist imprints on her face. She died just a few days later. A slave girl was accused of the beating and the murder and was hanged for it. And the lady of the house liked to walk in the garden, and was always humming. And various people over the years was a witness, I guess you could say, to the eternal humming that would take place in the garden. That just thoroughly freaked me out when I realized I got to witness it too. I'm not calling the original poster a liar or anything like that, but it's kind of weird that the tour guide was told that there was humming out in the garden, and she didn't say anything, didn't think anything of it. Now, she probably didn't want to freak out a bunch of 10-year-old kids, but it's still kind of strange that the tour guide didn't say, "Oh, yeah, that's just Miss whatever her name was. Yeah." You mentioned you had more stories? Yep, sure do. So when I was 14, my dad died. No need to be sad about it, he was an ass. When he was alive, he loved to sneak up on people and scare the crap out of them. One of the ways he would do that was just to silently creep up and chill out in the corner of your vision until you realized that there was just jerk just staring right back at you. After he passed away, I'd be sitting in the living room watching TV, and I would see him just glide up to the corner of my vision across the room and stand and stare at me from the front entryway. I'd look over and poof, nothing there. Now, this could be easily written off as me being tired, my mind playing tricks on me, etc. But that wasn't all of it. Dad loved to watch history and nature shows, and this was back in the day when History, Discovery, and A&E channels actually played decent documentaries and biographies and the like. He was an insomniac, so he'd always be up late with one of these channels on, and the walls were incredibly thin. I'd always have to beg him to turn down the sound so I could go to sleep when I was a kid. After he died, for a few months, at least once a week, I'd be in bed and all of a sudden I'd hear the TV in the living room, and it would be a documentary on ants or biography on Churchill and other things. It would spook me, definitely. My brother wasn't doing it because, for one, he's deaf, and if he were to watch TV, he'd just mute it. And he has his own TV. My mom worked nights, and it always happened when she wasn't at home. And at this point, my sister had been living on her own for quite some time. I would get up to see what had happened. Maybe the cat had turned on the TV? Yeah, but no. Max, the tuxedo, was usually in bed with me or outside. As I made my way down the hallway, through the kitchen and the dining room, I'd be able to hear the TV drone on about worker ants or something. And once I got to the front entryway where I could see the TV in the living room, all noise would cease. It'd be dead silent. So quiet you could probably hear a spider fart. But, wait, there's more. After he had passed, the locked, chained, and deadbolted front door would open on its own to let the cat in. This happened in front of everyone at different points over the winter after dear old dad had kicked the bucket. But the thing that really got me is this event I'm about to tell you. I was down in the basement one night watching TV. My mom was home and in the living room. Whenever she needed me, she would just stomp on the floor to get my attention. And that night she stomped something furious. I race upstairs and she's sitting in a chair with a wooden TV tray in front of her. On the table, there was a styrofoam cup, and it was shaking violently. There were no open windows or fans. I picked that cup up and checked it for wires and strings. Absolutely nothing was attached to it making the damn thing move. I put it back on the table and it would shake again. Mom, of course, is saying, it has to be Dad doing it. And nothing else. The creeping visions, the cat coming in through a bolted and chained front door, and the documentaries about ants being heard at all hours of the night freaked me out, as much as that damn cup freaked me out. I knew my mom wasn't doing it. I checked and double-checked. The table was perfectly flat on the floor, didn't wobble, and there was no way to make that cup move and not make the table itself move, you know? It just thoroughly spooked me, and Mom kept on saying it had to be Dad, he was a trickster, yada yada yada. So I just shout out, "If that's you, Dad, knock it the F out!" And it stopped. I'd even finish saying it and the cup just stopped shaking. After the cup incident, the cat had to wait for a live human to open the door. I heard no more documentaries in the middle of the night, and I didn't ever see Dad creep up in the corner of my vision to scare me anymore. Well, I'm not saying it was a ghost or anything like that, but you do hear that some ghost experts, they say that if you really want to get rid of a spirit, other than the whole exorcism thing, you just have to tell them basically to get out. So that's essentially what she did. She just told her dad to get out and it stopped. A girl I knew for a few years and was good friends with passed away in a car accident. A few days later, I have a dream that she's standing in the center of a road and I'm barreling towards her. I run into her and then she appears in the seat next to me. She forces my head toward her abdomen where her stomach would be, and there's a large mouth. The teeth are made up of broken glass and sharp metal. She keeps saying, "Shh." I wake up from the dream and I still hear, "Shh." I look toward the foot of my bed and she's standing in my room. She walks through my door and into the hallway. I follow her. She walks down the hallway and vanishes through the front door of the house. I didn't realize it at the time, but my dad was on the couch. He asked me if I was okay and if the flickering lights are what that woke me up. He didn't see her, and I never noticed the lights were flickering. I was helping my younger brother move into an apartment with his buddies, and I had to bring my two very young daughters with me. My youngest at the time was about 2.5 or 3, and fearless. She went to different rooms with my brother, exploring and have a jolly old time, until she got to the kitchen. Upon entering, my daughter froze. Her eyes were huge and fearful, and within 10 seconds, she was screaming bloody murder and running towards me as fast as she could, mumbling about "da yay," the lady, in the kitchen. My brother and I tried laughing it off, redirecting her and taking her mind off of it. But my normally calm kid was hysterical and we had to leave. She told me in bed that night that the lady had red eyes and was scary. If you knew my daughter, you'd understand how unlike her at all this was. She was 100% convinced that the lady she saw was just standing in the kitchen, and still to this day, 7 years later, she swears she did. I don't believe in ghosts and what have you, but her reaction made us question that. Thank you, Internet, for joining me on this Ask Reddit. So, the whole thing about ghosts is I don't know if I believe in ghosts or not. I'm more of the scientific, like, prove that it's real. Show me proof. I've seen a lot of really compelling evidence, but nothing that's a ghost saying, "Hi, I'm a ghost." But it's kind of fun to hear the stories anyway. They could be true, or they could not be true. But in any event, if you like this story, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and share it with a friend. I'll see you guys in the next video, so until then, later kids.